One of the things that happened during our week off last week was that the impeached president and people around him continued to insist that impeachment is no concern at all. It's no big deal. Everything's fine. Trump impeached, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Trump's not worried. Nobody's worried. And yet, Donald Trump spent the better part of the last week, including nearly entire days, rage tweeting about the fact that he has been impeached on Christmas Day evening. So Christmas Day, the 25th at night, and then the day after that, Donald Trump could not stop tweeting about Democrats and impeachment and Nancy Pelosi, and even about Home Alone 2, if you can believe it. On Christmas Day around 8 p.m. Eastern, it began, Trump, quote, "Why should crazy Nancy Pelosi, just because she has a slight majority in the House, be allowed to impeach the president of the United States? Got 0 Republican votes. There was no crime. The call with Ukraine was perfect, with no pressure. She said it must be bipartisan and overwhelming. But this scam impeachment, capitalizing scam and impeachment, we don't know why, was neither. Also very unfair with no capital D due process, proper representation, or witnesses. Now Pelosi is demanding everything the Republicans weren't allowed to have in the House. Dems want to run majority Republican Senate. Hypocrites, so riddled with random capitalization, riddled with non sequiturs, following it up with a series of tweets from very, very early in the morning, all through later in the day, alluding once again to the upper Trump. We've talked about you've got downer Trump or slowed down Trump, which is the slurring Trump that often shows up at rallies and speeches later in the day. We had video just in the last segment of that version of Donald Trump from his speech to Turning Point USA. This Trump, which is the earlier in the day Trump, erratic, hyped up, seeming far more manic, continuing to tweet, quote, "The radical left do-nothing Democrats said they wanted to rush everything through to the Senate because, quote, President Trump is a threat to national security. They are vicious, will say anything, but now they don't want to go fast anymore. They want to go very slowly. Liars." This is all so free of actual substance that it doesn't really warrant specific refuting beyond recognizing, number one, this is an unwell person. Number two, this is a very scared person. But again, how can Trump call them the do-nothing Democrats if they went and impeached him? It seems they're doing things to the extent that they can, of course, without controlling the Senate. They're just not the things that Donald Trump likes. This is not the behavior of someone who isn't worried about impeachment. And of course, more than half the country supports him being an impeached president, which is what he is. This is the political equivalent to your neighbor yelling, "Get off my lawn," to little kids cutting across the corner lot. This is your wacky uncle furious with a cloud at Thanksgiving. Nancy Pelosi has clearly triggered this guy, and we now are going to have to bear the brunt of it for the next, how long, right? I mean, possibly for the next year, possibly for the next 5 years. We could have 5 more years of this upcoming. And by the way, now that we've had another 10 days of time to observe, exactly as we predicted before our vacation, Nancy Pelosi holding the impeachment articles from the Senate for now has worked exactly as we believed it would. It has thrown Donald Trump into a tantruming, spiral, petulant child mode that we have seen to the nth degree. Trump is impeached, and yet he now has to wait before the trial gets going. And it is driving him absolutely up a wall. Dozens and dozens of tweets about Nancy Pelosi. He can't control himself. And it is turning out, it's either by chance or by plan. I don't know. It is one of the most clever moves that Nancy Pelosi has made. She's done a lot of terrible, misguided things. I think that actually the entire impeachment being focused only around Ukraine was a mistake. What about emoluments? What about Yemen? There's so many other things that are arguably even stronger. But this holding of the articles of impeachment for the time being has worked really well. We could expect Trump to continue tantruming all throughout the New Year's holiday and well into 2020. Maybe this will even be the subject, or at least discussed during Donald Trump's State of the Union address early in 2020, although at the same time, his advisors may successfully convince him not to talk about that. We will see. But this is working really well. And so far, actually a pretty good move by Nancy Pelosi amidst many not so good moves. So we will continue covering this and Trump's reaction and Republican defenses, including on Instagram. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at David Pakman Show. Follow me on Instagram while you are there at david.pakman. Lots of videos and pictures from my vacation last week, some of which have people quite titillated, I will say, but I will say no more. We'll take a quick break and be back after this.